it's Haley. It's been a minute since I've posted on here, but I have a lot of books I want to talk about that I read in January, and so I thought I would come and do a video about the books I'm excited to share. So I'm just going to get right into it. The first book I read in the month of January was Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Michael? Miracle? I don't know. But this is the first book I read in January. If you don't know, this book is about 3 short stories, and they're all intersecting holiday romances. I think I liked the first one the best, which was by Maureen Johnson, and this one was her parents get arrested, and so she has to take a train to visit her grandparents for Christmas. But when she's on the train gets stuck, and she meets a guy, and romance ensues. And that one was my favorite. The second one was by John Green, and that one followed friends on an adventure, like a typical John Green story. I feel like they're on an adventure to get into the snow to see these cheerleaders, which we've kind of known from the story previous, and it's all of like a friendship to love, a romance, and I really enjoyed that one. That one's like my second favorite. And then the third one was by Lauren Michael. I've already said, I don't know how to say her name, but this one was my least favorite. I also kind of felt like it almost ruined the book for me. It was not good. I didn't feel like it was good at all. And comparatively to like John Green, when you've read Maureen Johnson was so strong, and then John Green was like, I would say just as strong. And then you get to hers, and it was not good. I did not like it. That one was about a girl, and she had broken up. Her and her boyfriend had broken up because she had cheated on him, and then she wasn't sure whether the relationship stood, and so it was the whole story of landing that. What my problems with that story was, she was a totally unlikable character. I feel like maybe Lauren, but we'll call her Lauren, is better at doing full-length books. I don't know. The short story was just not fully developed. I don't think you could properly give enough character development in that short of time. I think if maybe you had a full-length novel with that story, it might have been okay. It was a very unlikable character. I didn't even think she deserved the guy. He was such a nice guy, and she was a jerk, basically. And I mean, it was sort of like a coming of age or coming of realization, I don't know what you call it, that like she's a jerk. But to me, it was like 3 pages of her going, wow, I'm selfish and I should change. And to me, that was very underdeveloped. And I just didn't think the writing was very good in the third one. And then it was just not good. But the first 2 were really strong. So I rated this 3 stars, I think. I think I gave the first 2 4 stars, and then the last one 2 stars. But I really enjoyed this as a whole. I read it super quick. And overall, I thought it was a good story to read, in the winter seasons, and I enjoyed it. But, yeah, Maureen Johnson, I've not read anything of hers. Well, but before this, I hadn't read anything of hers, and I was like, oh, I really need to check her out, because the writing was really good, and I really enjoyed it, and it was totally something up my alley. But anyways, so that was my first book that I read in January. So the next book I read in January was Shatter Me, by Tyra. I know how to say it, but I don't know how to say it. Tyra Mathy? Oh gosh. Don't come at me. I know I said it wrong, and I know how to say it, I just can't say it right now. I've had this on my shelf for a few months. 6 months, I would say. And I bought it because I was I've heard people talk about it, and it sounded like something that I would enjoy. But it's, I just never picked it up. I was something was calling me, beckoning me. The book was beckoning me. So I was oh, I'm gonna read this. And it sucked me into this Shatter Me vortex. I'm totally for it, and I'm kind of sad that it took me this long to get into the series. Where was I in 2012? Because this series has been 2011. This came out. I was man. But I think books come to you at certain times. I don't know if you believe that, but I feel books kind of choose you. Anywho, so this follows Juliet, and she can't touch anybody. Her like touch is lethal, and it's her story about her and the reestablishment, and it's like a dystopian, and it was so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in January was The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. You already know that I'm terrible at saying authors' names, so don't be surprised if I butchered it. Anywho, this is The Wizard of Oz. I don't think there's much to explain. It's the classic story. I got it in this beautiful, like, penguin. I don't know which like, edition it is. Puffin. It's beautiful. And that's why I got it, like, originally. Like, it was just so pretty, and I never read it. And I was like, huh, and it was short, and, I had just read Shatter Me, and I was waiting for the other ones to come, because I obviously wanted to keep reading them. And, I had this on my shelf. It was short. I thought it would be an easy read. Another thing that I've been doing in the month of January is trying to read 50 pages every day. I'm trying to carry that into the year. And I've done pretty good, and I'll share, like, my little page tracker at the end. But so I was going to take, like, 2 days or something for the rest of the Shatter Me books to come in, and this is, like, 100, well, it's, like, 174 pages. But I was like, if I read 50 pages a day of this, I will get it done pretty quickly, and then I can go back to, like, reading the other books. So I needed something to read to fill my 50 pages a day thing, so I chose this, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was very good. I felt like there's so much to gain from this book. It's definitely a book that I will read to my kids if I have kids eventually. This would be a book that I'd read to them, because I just enjoyed a lot of aspects of it. I felt like it holds up really well over time. I feel like there's lots of elements to discuss about it. Overall, I've always just been fascinated with The Wizard of Oz. I feel like there's so much to dig into. Like, there's so many meanings and so many things behind it all that I just find super interesting. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Destroy Me by Tahara Mafi. I think I was closer that time. I gave this 4 out of 5. And obviously this is Destroy Me and Fracture Me. But yeah, I read Destroy Me next, and it was 4 out of 5 stars for me. Destroy Me is from Warner's perspective, and I enjoyed it. A lot of the time I was like, huh, because at this point I really did not like Warner. I didn't understand why people liked Warner. I was really confused. I was still on that Adam train. So I would like to go back and read this one, actually, because I think it would shed a lot of light into, like, my perspective now. But I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book, is anybody surprised, that I read in January is Unravel Me by Tahara Mafi. I think, like I said, I'm getting better at the name. So this is obviously the second book in the Shatter Me series. You know, I'm not going to talk much about it because it's the second book. Really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. To me, I didn't like it as much as the first one. But I did really still enjoy it. And so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then obviously I'm keeping up on the train. The next book I read in January was Fracture Me, which is another novella. And this is from Adam's perspective. And at this point, after reading this one, I hated Adam. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hate Adam. I lost my voice. I hate Adam. And, like, up until this point, I was Adam Strong, and I'm still not understanding. I read Unravel Me, and I'm still not understanding. And then I read Fracture Me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, die. Jump off a cliff. He's the absolute worst. He's the worst. And I couldn't even, like, rate this book because I was so shocked at my feelings, and I didn't know how I felt because I was so mad that I hated him, but also I was like, oh my gosh, my eyes are opened to the light. And, like, I don't know. It was good. I don't know, so I didn't know how to rate it, because I hated him, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit, but it was also really good. The next book that I read was Ignite Me, or Still Are We Surprised? Tahara Mafi. This is the third book and was the original conclusion to the story before Restore Me. Really, really good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know why I stumbled there. I really enjoyed this. I thought, like, to be the original ending of the story, it was phenomenal. Like, this was a very, very great book. I just totally enjoyed, like, in Unravel Me, there's parts that were slower, and there's parts that I didn't really, like all the way. This was, like, just a really good time for me throughout, and that's why it got 5 stars instead of 4 stars, and why Unravel Me got little. It's not that I didn't love it, it's just that, like, there's parts of me that, like, were either slow, or I didn't get it, or, you know, not my thing, but this was 5 stars, totally enjoyed the whole thing, thought it was brilliant. Yes. The next book that I read in January was Bane Chronicles. I listened to this on audiobook. I really enjoyed the audiobook. There's some people on there that I love that did the voices, like Dr. Avery from Grey's Anatomy. Obviously, that's not his real name. I think his name is Jesse Williams. He did the first story, and I was like, oh, is he going to do the whole thing? And he didn't. I would have loved if he would have done the whole thing, but a lot of these were good. Some of the voices were better than others. There was also Tyler from Vampire Diaries who did one of the voices, which I was like, oh, Michael Trevino, hey! Anyways, so yeah, I overall recommend this as an audiobook because of the nature of the stories. It's a bunch of, and if you don't know, this is in the Mortal Instruments, I don't even know what the whole series, Mortal Instruments, like, realm, and this follows this follows Magnus Bane. And it's his stories, it's backstories of his life, it's stories that intercede with other books that we have read. It is said that you need to read this before you read the other books that are the new ones, you know, the Lady Midnight and all those. And I don't know what it's called. The Dark Artifists, and I know I'm not saying that right, so struggling. But this, they say you should read this and the Shadowhunters Codex before you go into those. I read this and I really enjoyed it. Magnus Bane is one of my favorite characters in the series, so I think, like, if you love Magnus Bane, like, you would love this. Some people said the stories got a little, like, dragging. There were some stories that you just didn't need to know. I feel like some stories were boring. But as a whole, I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Magnus's character, so I enjoyed a bunch of stories. Now, I tried starting listening to the Shadowhunters Codex, and I don't think I'm going to read it. I think I'm going to just DNF that one right there. Maybe eventually I'd come back to it. I cannot stand Simon's character, so I just, like, didn't have any interest in continuing. So I think I'm just going to, I read this, and then I think I'm just going to eventually go straight into the Dark Artifices or Artifacts or whatever it is. But I'd say, like, if you're a fan of Magnus Bane, you would enjoy this. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars just because there was some stories in there, like I said, that I didn't feel like I needed to know, kind of dragged on. But there was a lot of stories in here that I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And it was fun to relive, like, old characters that you've read about before, and also there's parts of it that I really laughed at because Magnus Bane is really funny. But, so yeah. The next one I read is a reread, and it's Lock and Key by Sarah Dessen, which I was really happy because I'm trying to get through, read all the Sarah Dessen books, and, like, if you've been here, if you're still here, if you're still following my channel after great absence, my goal was to read Sarah Dessen, like, 2 years ago. Like, I was going to read all of Sarah Dessen books before the summer, and then I was going to read Once and For All. Whenever Once and For All came out, this was my plan. So I think it's been 2 years. But so I'm still holding to that. I do not want to read, and she's coming out with a new book this summer, and so I really want to read that too. So I'm really trying, and I think I just have 4 more books, and if I read one a month, then I'll be ready for June, I think. February, March, April, May. Yeah. If I read the 4 books, then I'll be ready. So, yeah, so all that to say, I reread this. To me, it wasn't one of my favorite books from her. There's parts of it that I just didn't care about. Oh, so anyways, this follows Ruby, and her mom leaves her behind. And she decides she's gonna, like, live her life. She tries to figure it out. Like, she doesn't want to be picked up by child services. She doesn't know where she would go. So she just, like, keeps up her mom's job and goes to school, and the power gets shut off and everything, and she's, like, living in filth. So then her sister, like, child services finds her, and they pick her up, and then she goes to live with her sister, who's, like, quite a bit, I'd say 10 years older, and she, is married with a husband in this really nice mansion. And they say, like, they reference, like, $1 million mansion. And so she has to change schools, and she just feels like her sister doesn't care for her, because she abandoned her, and they find out different things about their relationship, and she meets a boy. And to me, this wasn't, like, it's not the typical, like, girl meets boy, they fall in love story, Sarah Destin story. Like, usually, most Sarah Destin stories, like, girl meets boy, there's some sort of conflict, 100 pages in, they fall in love, then maybe about another 100 pages in, there's some sort of conflict, but then after another 100 pages, they come back together, fall in love, realize they've loved each other all this time, and then it ends. That's, like, I would say, like, the typical Sarah Destin formula. And I'm not mocking it because I love Sarah Destin. He's one of my favorite authors. So I'm not, but, like, that's kind of the typical, and I mean, there's been books that have been strayed away from that, like, since rereading, like, Dreamland, it's more about abuse, and had a different storyline, and there's been a couple of them, like, Keeping the Moon and stuff that don't follow that, but there's a lot of books that follow that, like, storyline, whatever you call it. This didn't follow that. This talks about abuse, but in a different light, like family abuse, and like, she deals with like a certain level of abuse because her mom was abusive, and she obviously abandoned her, and so she's dealing with that kind of level of abuse. The boy that she meets has a certain level of abuse going on, and so it focuses on different things. To me, it just wasn't my favorite book. She's not one of my favorite lead characters. There's a lot of it, I felt like she was mean. And like I said with the other one, like, I don't really like unlikable characters. I know, like, there's people who are like, you should love a book even if the character's unlikable. To me, some of it affects the way I enjoy the story. And this, like, she was very unlikable for a big portion of it, and so it was kind of hard for me to, like, be supportive of her. So I give it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Furthermore by Tara Mafi. I think I've got it. This is a middle grade read for me. I got this for my birthday last year, I think. So I've had it for quite a while. This follows the main character, Alice Alexis Queensmeadow. This follows Alice Alexis Queensmeadow, and she is in a world of color, but her skin, she's just black and white. And her dad's been missing for a few years. And then this boy comes along who she doesn't like, and he asks her to come along with him to find her father, and so she goes on this journey, and it's this magical world. The writing is beautiful. Like, the writing is absolutely beautiful. It was very enchanting. I don't think a lot of it's not like the stories I typically like to read, which, like, say what you will about me, but, like, part of it is not, like, books I usually read, but I really enjoy this. I thought it was sweet. Like, it was a very quick read for me. I really enjoyed it. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills, and this is a author that I've been hearing a lot about for, like, probably years now. And she sounds like she sounded like she'd be exactly like my cup of tea. And so I picked this up at Barnes & Noble, and because it was in paperback, which I was like, oh, cool. But now that I've seen, like, the hardcovers, I'm like, oh, because I really loved this. This was about Claudia, who accidentally overhears a breakup of 2 girls in her class, and so she makes friends with this girl that she didn't think she would be friends with, and she ends up having to be in this play of, like, she's, like, sewing costumes for A Midsummer's Night Dream, and she makes all these friends, and then she meets this boy, and I really loved this book. So it's all about, like, friendship and love and, like, romance and all the things of a good contemporary that I really enjoy. Yeah, I really liked the writing in this. I'm totally going to read more Emma Mills. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Just overall, it was, like, just a very enjoyable read for me. The last book I read in January is Bloodthirsty by Flynn Meany. I haven't heard a lot about this book, like, within the booktube community or, like, anywhere, actually. It came out in 2010, and it kind of came out in that whole frame of, like, when the vampires were really big, and, like, when you know, Twilight was really big and True Blood was really big, and, you know, I think it came out in that era. This I picked up at, like, a bookstore, and it was used, and, like, it just, like, caught my attention. I'm just gonna read the back because I think that's what originally caught my attention. So the front says, some vampires are good, some are evil, some are faking it to get girls. Attention all girls reading this. We get it. The message is coming through loud and clear. You think vampires are hot. Your little sister thinks vampires are hot. Your mom thinks vampires are hot. Every single female on the earth, on the face of the earth, thinks vampires are hot. Girls love vampires, and I love girls. Unfortunately, girls don't seem to love me. So I'm making a change. For all the guys reading this, say a little prayer to the high school dating gods for me. Here's hoping that girls think fake vampires are hot too. So I read that and I was like, that sounds hilarious. So I bought it and I've had it on my shelves for quite a while. And like I said, it was just like poking out of my, like a box since we just like moved. And I was like, I want to read that now. And it was so good. It was funny. It's about like 250 pages. So not very long. It's about this guy and he's just basically like a dork in school. Nobody really pays attention to him. He gets bullied, picked on. His twin brother is like the opposite of him. He's the football player. Everybody loves him. Everybody knows who he is. And he's just kind of like invisible. And he doesn't have any friends. And he ends up moving and they're switching schools. And he goes to the beach and he finds out that he's allergic to the sun. He breaks out in hives and finds out he has a sun sensitivity. And so from that, he like meets a girl on a bus. And she's like, I know what you are. And he's like, what? And then he finds out that all these people find vampires hot. And then he thinks, well, I look like a vampire. So I just have to convince the people at my school that I'm a vampire. So it's all this, like, you know, quirky stuff that happens. It's a bunch of pop culture references. He is pretending that he's a vampire. He's, like, trying to have an Edward Cullen level of confidence. And, like, what that ends up being is he has a bunch of friends at home. He's very popular in certain circles and, like, he like, gains popularity. But it's all because of his confidence. It's not because people think he's a vampire. So I thought it was very well done. Like, I think it's very... I think this is also a book, like... I mean, not like The Wizard of Oz, but, like, in that same vein, like, you could have many conversations about the different levels of this book. Yeah, it was funny, and yeah, it's, like, you know... But there's a lot of things that could be found in this, like, your self-confidence and all this stuff. Like, you don't have to be a vampire, you just have to act like one. I just thought it was very well done. Like, and there's parts of it, you know, there was cheesy, and there's parts of it that were predictable. But overall, it was, like, such a creative idea and well done, and I really enjoyed it. And so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So now I'm just gonna do, like, my bookly stats, because I had a really good month this year. I had a really good reading month this month. And like Kayla from Books and Lala, she always does stats and stuff, and like I've seen other people do stats, and I just like, that's part of it that's like really interesting to me. So I thought I would share. So the total pages I read this month was 3,584. What? And the total books I read were 12. And the number of rereads I had this month was 1. And the number of books owned before this month. So I'm trying to do this thing. I'm trying to get through my books that I own. So Marie Kondo, right, is a thing. And people have been talking about how she said you can only have 30 books. Or you should only have 30 books. And people are doing videos on like, if I only had 30 books. Or I'm getting rid of my books. And they're doing all these things. And like really what it just inspired me to do is just to read more of the books I own. There's not a whole lot of books, and I've gone through multiple times and gotten rid of books that I don't think I'm going to read. And like last night I went through and like categorized all the books I own and put them on my Goodreads into a physical TBR list. So I have a list of books I own that I need to get to. But I went through and there wasn't a lot of books, like a lot of them I was like, I still want to read it. And so I think it'd be easier to get rid of them if I don't like them after I've read them. So my goal more for this year is just to like read more of the books I own before I buy more. I'm reading Restore Me, so I think I'm going to want to buy this year the new Shatter Me because I'm going to want to continue the series. So there's books like that I'm going to want to read. I think I'm going to want to read the new Sarah Dessen, Lord willing, if I ever finish that Sarah doesn't reread. But, you know, there's stuff like that's going to come out that I'm going to want to read, that I'm probably going to want to buy. But I kind of want to save my buys for that. And honestly, like, a lot of the books that I own are in thrift store buys. So, like, a lot of the books that I buy are like 25 cents, 50 cents. So it's not like I'm spending a whole lot of money on books, but there's just a large quantity of books that I have not read. So that was a long way to say that I'm trying to read more of the books that I already own. And so I'm trying to think of a way to hold myself accountable about it. I mean, I bought a couple books this month, obviously. So, so I'm going to get into that. So the number of books that I owned before this month, that I didn't buy this month, was 7. The books that I bought this month a couple of the books I bought this month were included in the Shatter Me series. So I bought Unravel Me, Ignite Me, and the novellas. I also bought Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills. But then there was a lot of these books that I already had. So I feel like that's a win. And so I'm going to be trying to make that number higher each month. Also, I said I would show my page tracker. So this is it. I don't really have a bullet journal. Like, I'm not good at bullet journals, but I have sort of like a journal that I keep, that I put like events I did this in the month, and like I keep track of like books I read and movies I watched, because I like to look back at that kind of thing. So one of the things I started doing is a page tracker, and this one, it's not like super cute or anything, but it helps me keep track of my pages. And so, like, as you can see, like, the first few, like, up until the 11th, I read 50 pages or more every single day. So, like, my whole strategy with this is, like, if I read 50 pages per day, most of the time I end up reading more because I'm, like, sucked up into a book. But sometimes you just need to read the 50 pages to get into it. And, like, with Wizard of Oz, if I had not been reading 50 pages a day, it probably would have taken me a long time to read it. But since I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to read 50 pages of this, and then once I read it, then I can read something else. But I have to read the 50 pages of this first. And that was, like, with Furthermore. Some parts were kind of slower for me, and I was like, but I just have to read the 50 pages, and then I can read, like, Lock and Key or something else that I'm reading. So that really helped me, like, keep motivated in my reading and keep reading. So the first 11 days I read, like, more than 50 pages or 50 pages at least. And then I had a day where it was just I was exhausted, so I didn't read any. And then, like, I had another block of time, like, the 13th through the 23rd, I read at least 50 pages every day. And then the plus marks means that I read, and if this is totally boring with you, I'm really sorry, more than 200 pages. And then I went out of town for weekends. I didn't read, so, like, it got spotty. But, like, a lot of my month was just focused on reading. So I really like tracking it that way. It keeps me motivated and inspired to keep reading. So just something that I thought I would share in case you were also like me and you like lists, and, like, it really helps me to, like, fill in the blocks whenever I read. Like, I'm like, yay. And so it's been really helpful. So I hope to be back with another video and to share more about what I'm reading. If you liked this, if you stuck around with me, even though I have not posted in a quick minute, I appreciate you. And thanks for watching. Yeah, see you soon.